Hello to our readers. Thanks so much for watching this video today, you guys. We are going to be, or I'm going to be interviewing some awesome people. One of them who has been very involved in our organization for a long time, and his significant other, Elizabeth. So Shane Lewis has been a part of our Kansas Youth Leadership Forum in multiple capacities as a delegate and also as a volunteer. And Shane has also been a part of our Faces of Change program. So he's been involved with us in a lot of different ways. And I most recently met Elizabeth because of Shane. And I think she's awesome. So I'm excited to interview them today. And our newsletter this month is about relationships. And I think it's important for people to see that people with disabilities want to be in relationships too and can be in relationships too. And so we have a couple different interviews in our newsletter this month, and this is going to be one of them. I think this is really hopefully going to appeal to our youth readers, which is what we're all about because Shane and Elizabeth both are youth within our definition. So we're going to get to know them, talk about their relationship a little bit, and their tips for success too. So I'm going to jump in with what we want to start with is some introductions to know who you guys are. So if each of you could tell me what's your name, how old you are, what are your disabilities, and if you were going to use one word to describe yourself, what would that one word be? So I'll let you guys jump in.
I'm gonna go first. Okay. Um, Hi, my name is Shane Lewis. I have cerebral palsy and a learning disability, and I am 24 years old. And if I could describe myself in one word, would have to be positivity.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane.
I'm Elizabeth Jane Varleman. I'm 20 years old. My disabilities is dypraxia, dyslexia, spondylolisthesis, I can never say the last one. And the word that most describes me is fervent, which is like very passionate.
That's a great word. I love that. Okay, you listed a bunch of disabilities and some of them were really big. Can you tell us a little bit more? Some of them, obviously, I would assume people would know, but some of those bigger words, are those physical disabilities, mental health? Like what are they exactly?
Yeah, so dyspraxia is a neurodevelopmental disability that affects not only coordination and balance, but as well as speech patterns and ability to form a speech in a consistent pattern. And then the other two, spondylolisthesis is a spinal disorder that affects the ability for your spine to move and operate how it is supposed to be. And then the one that I can never pronounce is just how they try to fix it, and it caused it to have one big joint instead of a bunch of little ones like your spine does. That's about it.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that explanation. All right, so we know who you guys are. Where do you live? What city do you live in?
We live in Lawrence, Kansas.
Lawrence. Okay, both of you are in Lawrence, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So tell me a little bit more. Obviously, I know some of this about you guys, but for those who are watching this, tell me more about what each of you do. Are you in school? Are you working? What just kind of takes up your time each day?
So I work at the Self Advocate Coalition of Kansas, which focuses on systems change for disabilities, as well as teaching people, whether they have a disability or not, that everyone can advocate for themselves and is their everybody is their own person and everybody can make decisions.
Mhm.
But also just showing people that like having a disability can't stop you from, advocating for yourself, or not having a disability does not mean you can't advocate for others or yourself, but mainly just being there for people and showing them that they can advocate for themselves and being support for them, but not telling them what to do, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, and I'm a student at the University of Kansas studying management and leadership in the business school. And in the fine arts school, I'm doing metalsmithing. And then we're both in Lind at KU Med, which is leadership and education and neurodevelopmental and related disabilities.
I made her say that because I can never remember the acronym.
Yes, that was a long one. So thanks for saying that. And what do you guys do with that group? Are you just like on a advisory board or consultants or like what do you do with that?
So we take the class with them and we learn all of the same things. Most of it is focused on autism, but every week there's a different topic related to disability or related to physical therapy or education. Every week is a different subject. And what I like to say, the reason why we're there is to give the disability perspective and to give them different ideas. They're learning about all these different disabilities, but then there's two of us that have different disabilities who can come up with different ideas and different thought patterns and things like that. And it's really fun, and it's all about different perspectives and different disciplines. So everybody has a different discipline. Like obviously, me and Elizabeth's discipline is advocacy, but then there's teaching and all these different things. So that's kind of what we do for that. Do you have any other thoughts, or is that like?
Yeah, it's mainly people either in grad school or trying to become a doctor in different types of fields that involve people with disabilities. And so they're just really curious on getting a greater understanding on how to ethically treat people with disabilities.
Okay,
And they pay us, so
even better. Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like a really good opportunity. So Elizabeth did mention one thing, a little title that she happens to have. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, so I was recently crowned 2025 Junior Miss Amazing, and I will be going to nationals later this year. It's a super exciting title for women with disabilities. It involves advocacy as well as being a part of the community to make a change, not only locally, but as well as nationwide.
Mhm. Awesome. I love that. And congratulations on that again. Shane, you look like you were going to say something else. Did you want to add something?
just something that I forgot that we both live by ourselves as people with disabilities. And I forgot to mention that earlier, that we both live in apartments by ourselves, because I know a lot of people don't think they can do that.
Yeah.
And I know that that wasn't in the question. So,
I have three roommates, and Shane lives independently on himself by himself.
Awesome. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, I think that's great. And the other interview that I did for the newsletter as well, we kind of talked about that. So I'm glad that you guys brought it up as well, because this is like another example that it is possible. And I'm going to add more to that, or I'm going to ask more about that, because I do think it's important for our youth to know that they can live independently, whatever that looks like for them. So for you guys, what does that look like? Do you get help with a lot of different things? Do you not need help with a lot of different things? Like, how do you make that work as someone with, you both have physical disabilities in some way. So how do you make that work each day?
Yeah, so with mine is a little bit more complicated since I live with three neurotypical individuals in very privileged circumstances who get a lot of assistance. And so mine has been a lot trickier than most to be able to get around, but they have been very helpful and accommodating. So we all have like a one chore we all do. And so I made sure to tell them I can't do any of the other chores besides this one. And so we made it like where we all only do this one chore um, throughout the year to make it more equitable and make sure I'm included. They also make sure there's nothing in the pathway in the hallway. So I have a clear path since my room is at the very back of the apartment complex, just making sure that my walkway is safe.
Okay. What
um,
about you, Shane?
with me, like I said, I live by myself. Um, my parents are about 30 minutes away, so they help with various things. Um, but also my job and the people that work with me in my job, it's not technically a traditional work environment, so we're also all really good friends. So I also rely on them to help me with certain things, and they always ask if I need help or things like that. And I kind of just and then like when Elizabeth comes over, we kind of just lean on our strengths. So I will like do laundry. I will like wipe down all the tables. I will make certain meals with like a crock pot or different ways that I like to make meals that feel safer for me. But then Elizabeth might use the oven. Might vacuum. or mop, as well as my other friends. But I'm currently on the IDD waiver list for services. But right now, I can't get any services because I'm not off the list yet. And most people don't know this, but the list usually takes 10 to 5 years to actually gain services. So basically, I get help because I'm a nice person, pretty much, and people are willing to help me. And I also use public transportation to get around, um, and Uber as well in different ways. If and just sometimes I'll just pay coworkers to take me somewhere. Um, it's not about like how much help you need. It's just about how you can take your adaptive challenge and figure out how to make it work for you.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
mine is basically just taking my strengths and using them, and then the other things that I need help with, I ask other people to do, or I figure out a way to do it with some form of technology or some form of assistance.
mhm.
I pride myself in the whole independent part though, so
Mhm.
sometimes I might overdo it sometimes.
I don't think you can ever overdo independence, to be honest with you. But I love that because it sounds like you have learned informal supports. Like you may not be on the waiver yet. Hopefully you will be at some point. But you've learned how to really utilize those informal supports of friends and coworkers and family and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important for people to know. And it sounds like you're doing it pretty successfully. So
And I use things that sometimes people wouldn't think about. So I use the Walmart app to deliver my groceries when I don't have somebody to take me. It's all about finding out what will help you. And a lot of people don't realize that there's other things out there that aren't for people with disabilities, but can actually help them.
for sure. Thank you for mentioning that, Shane. We could totally have a whole nother Zoom on independent living, I think. I might do that for a future issue because there's so much to talk about and different ways of doing it. But let's dive back into you guys as a couple. So I always think it's fun to learn how people meet. So how did you meet? And how long have you been in an actual like relationship with each other?
So, as you know, Carrie, in the disability community, everybody does everything with each other. And like anytime that you have a conference to go to or you're part of a group, usually the other people also know you and they ask you to do things. So you guys already know that I work for SAC. So basically when I was working for SAC, they have um, a conference every year for everyone in the state of Kansas. And I was getting ready to join Lind, which is what Elizabeth mentioned earlier. And Sean Swindler and a few of the other people that work at KU, as well as work with SAC sometimes, told me that there was going to be this person that was going to be there that was going to be in Lind, and she was the only other person with disabilities. And so I was like, sweet, that sounds fun. And then we got to the SAC conference, and then Sean told me to basically be nice to her. And I said, well, I would, I'd never be mean. And so then I was just like, oh, okay. And I just kind of talked to her for a little bit. And then she can tell her the rest of it. But
Um,
that was the beginning.
Okay.
and then we were talking even after the conference. And so probably a month or two later, I asked him like, "So what is going on? Like, what is this?" And like if he was talking to anyone else, and he was like, "No, I haven't since we met." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Neither have I." And then we kind of just like agreed that we were dating then.
Like, because I didn't realize, because something you may not know about, well, Carrie will know this, but most people don't know this. When you go to a conference or you're a part of an organization and you have to do a lot of work, the week or the 3 days you're there, there's a lot of lack of sleep.
Mhm.
So I was enjoying getting to know Elizabeth and doing all of the things that I have to do for work, but I was so sleep deprived, I didn't even think about the fact that maybe this person might like me until like a month later, I'm like, oh, she likes me. I woke up from my lack of sleep and realized maybe something else might be going on.
he moved to London shortly after that, and we went on several dates as well during a few
Yeah.
months.
That's hilarious, Shane. I totally get that.
Like I
Totally
literally didn't
understand that.
realize until 2 or 3 days after. I'm like, and I believe somebody else actually made me think about it. But I was literally had no idea what was happening. Like I was so tired.
Well, I bet she's glad that you finally figured it out. And the
That's the
rest is
part
history.
she left. That's the part she left out was that she told me that she liked me because I didn't realize it
Yeah,
until after.
I had to be very clear about
Hmm.
like everything I was feeling, so we were on the same page.
Yeah. No, that's great though. That's good advice. Sometimes you do have to just be direct with people. So obviously there was something about the other person that really attracted you guys to each other. So what is it about the other person that made you want to be in a relationship with them?
So I really wanted to be in a relationship with Shane due to multiple reasons. He has always encouraged me, no matter if he agreed with it or not. If, um, if it's something that I wanted to do, he was always supportive, as well as conscious of what I might like or might not like, and was very reasonable towards um, just like understanding and not holding things that I can't control against me, which is something that was huge for me, is like understanding boundaries as well as like communicating and that kind of thing.
And then with me, it kind of started with like the personality, and I was like, oh, this is like I Carrie kind of knows this about me that I tend to overthink about things, or I just or certain things become too much. And I was like, I am in a good way, I am distracted when I'm around this person to where I will not think of those things. But I get things done and do work or when she's around me and things like that. But the other things just kind of go away. And I was like, "Well, this is kind of cool." And then throughout more and more weeks, I was like, oh, I like her being around more than the average person. And I think that I think that I would much rather her instead of being around once a week. I think she should be around a lot more. And then I kind of just fell in love with the whole. She's a very silly person, but she can also be very serious. And then like whenever you're very passionate, like she said, so it can go both ways. She can be passionate into of like, hey, you need to like do this thing, or hey, stop beating yourself up about something. So, or you can definitely tell when she's thinking certain things, and then that helps me. So those are some big reasons that I had thought of.
Very
That
cool.
makes sense.
Sounds like you guys balance each other really well.
Yes, I
Yes,
have to agree with that.
Absolutely. Have each of you been in relationships before?
yes, I have.
Mhm.
Um, and they generally are like I always feel like I have to convince them to get over the disability part or not get over it. Even if they don't care, my brain will make me think that they care, and I have to like wait out and think that they're not trying to use me for something, or that my disability doesn't affect it in like uh in like the person actually liking me way. So that was kind of a nice thing,
Mhm.
was that I didn't really have to do that, because not that I was trying to do this, because anybody can be with anybody that they want to, but the fact that she already has a disability gets rid of that thing. And I've been in different relationships where I didn't feel safe enough in that part,
Gotcha.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. What about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, my past experiences has only been with neurotypical people, which I think definitely is different dating someone without disabilities and dating someone with disabilities as someone who's disabled. And I honestly think it improves the well-being of the relationship because we both understand what it's like to be without limited because of society.
Not just because we're disabled.
Mhm. Yeah, makes total sense. Okay, cool. Thank you. What is your favorite part of being in a relationship? We'll start on the good side and then we'll flip it to your least favorite, but let's stick with your favorite part right now.
Uh, my favorite part would be having to look forward to something or watching a movie together and just like spending time with each other and like thinking when you're not there, thinking about like what the person would want or making them food before they get somewhere and then know it, then hoping that they're going to like it or doing something that isn't expected on both ends. Like I always like not being like surprised isn't like a birthday or something, but like being surprised by something that she does or something that she did that I didn't ask for, or when she plans something and I don't know it's planned or something like that, if that makes sense. I'm not very good about being spontaneous. She can kind of do that a lot better than I can.
Okay.
And I think mine is the complete opposite, how reliable and how like for sure he is with himself on certain things, like understanding different disabilities and as well as like communicating within the public on topics relating to disability. I feel like I don't know much about it, even though I have a lot of experience, like within my personal life and my family, but not really on the educational side. Um, Not only that, he is very gentle with me when I am not being gentle, which definitely helps calm me down and realize what the situation needs at hand. Helps me see the bigger picture for sure.
Very cool. Okay, so there's always two sides to something, right? And relationships are not always sunshine and rainbows. So, what's your least favorite part of being in a relationship?
Probably any type of conflict, and so that's why I like to have conversations when things come up. I don't like to we don't do this very often anymore, but I don't like things to be bottled up and then come out like months later. And even though we've gotten a lot better about it, I still think about it a lot because I don't like unhealthy confrontation. There's been a lot of people in my life that have been very unhealthy confrontation. I don't mind like having a debate with you about something or whatever, but I don't think people should yell and scream. So even though we don't do that with each other, I still think a lot about like that aspect of it. And I think about it almost every time something comes out of my mouth. Is this thing going to be a negative thing? How will she react to this? Or like, will this lead to an argument of some sort and not just a nice conversation? Because I'm thinking that the waiting until everything blows up thing is going to happen, even if it doesn't. So I genuinely just don't like negative conflict, if that makes sense. Conflict itself can be really good, and constructive criticism can be good. I want to make that very clear to people. There's a difference, but conflict in itself that is super negative, I don't enjoy.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's not necessarily about her. I don't know if it was supposed to be about her, but that's just about
Whatever. Yeah,
relationships in general for me when it comes to the negative part.
sure. Yeah. Okay. What about you, Elizabeth?
Mine is definitely him when he tries to protect me when I'm going through a lot. He tends to not communicate his needs as clearly as I need it to be, or even like hiding his needs and his personal things that's going on when there's a lot going on with me, just to help me. And that's probably the least favorite thing because I want him to not only be his whole self but be able to be his whole self no matter if I'm being my whole self and there's a lot going on.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for presenting both sides of that because there is a lot of good, but then there's also some challenges too. And I think that's important for people to know that and remember that. What do you guys enjoy doing together? What do you like to do as a couple?
Too. Like I like watching movies. I have like it's not unhealthy, but I enjoy watching movies, and a lot of people think that you can't have a successful date or a successful experience with someone if you're watching a movie. Maybe not for the first one, but once you get to know people, you can. And so I really enjoyed that, but also just being in so in her presence or in someone else's presence is a pretty good thing. We also just like to do stuff together, and I like to say intermingle ourselves into other parts of like our lives with each other, and to just hang out and spend time together, and sometimes like sometimes just be around each other, I guess. And then she has some stuff too that
Yeah.
she wrote.
I really like the ritual of like making meals together or even making meals for the other person. I think that is like a very wholesome thing to do. It's just feeding and like making sure everyone is like okay around you. I always felt like that made me feel more connected with the person as well as like I enjoy doing that for them as well as like laughing and like talking about our day, even if it's not something important. Just like going through the day by day and like really enjoying his reactions and like experience and what he thought throughout the day.
Or laughing at ableism together.
Yeah, that
That
one.
we realized later that was ableism, and we're like, oh, uh, and that one's fun. I think that's really funny because I didn't know if I could. It's not a very long story, but I was thinking about this like last night, and I was like, I wonder what people's opinion of this would be, or what Carrie would say. Are you okay with that? It's only going to be like a few seconds.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
So we went on a date to go get food, and we had a good time. But then we got into an Uber, right? Like we normally do. And I happened to have my chair with me. So a couple months before that, someone accidentally broke it. So I got really like concerned about my chair. So Elizabeth is the only person that could put the chair in the Uber now, unless I have someone else with me. But this person, he said that Elizabeth was very precious, and I was like, well, yeah, of course she is. But then he kept saying it over and over again. And then later when I got out of the Uber, I realized it was because I was I appear disabled
Hmm.
because I am disabled, but also Elizabeth is. But some people don't realize she is unless she's using her devices or if she tells people about it. So the whole time that person was saying that because Elizabeth was helping me and taking care of me. And I like to say that that's not because I'm disabled. That's just because I am me. And I didn't realize until later that that person was referring to the fact that she was doing those things because it was so precious because I'm disabled and not because of the reason why I think about it, which is because I'm me.
Hmm. Wow. I'm not surprised, unfortunately, by a situation like that. And that actually kind of leads to the next question, which is about your disabilities and the fact that you both have disabilities. But I'm glad you shared that because that was going to be kind of part of my question is, do you guys ever get those? And I hadn't even thought about the fact that Elizabeth, a lot of people can't tell that you have a disability just by looking at you unless you're using your cane or those kinds of things. And so I bet you have had situations where people are like, "Oh, you're so wonderful to take care of little old Shane."
Yeah, that literally happened like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, interesting. Yeah. I mean, you guys are breaking stereotypes just by being together, and I think that's so cool. I love that. So, how do your disabilities play? I mean, obviously, you both have multiple disabilities. How do your disabilities play a part in your relationship? Do you feel like you complement each other because of your disabilities, or does it just bring additional challenges to what you're doing together?
I think it just complements each other. as far as like the physical aspect of our disabilities. And I also know that both of our disabilities will eventually, unfortunately, get worse. Um, which I've kind of came to terms with that. But right now, I think it really complements each other, and we just kind of what the other one can't do, the other person does, or we figure out like what we don't like. Like I don't mind. Like what's weird is I love to talk to people, but I don't like once I get someone's vibe when they talk to me, I don't want to talk to them anymore, or I become really shy. And then so sometimes she might order my food because that person seems to come off really like weird, and I can't really explain what that means, but it just happens to me sometimes. And so she will like order my food or something if I'm not feeling up to it or something like that. But then if somebody decides to like, you know, I can decides to like say something about, us having disabilities, I can say something about that. But sometimes there's certain things that I don't that I just don't like to do or certain situations. So she tends to help me with those things. And I feel like it kind of complements each other. But it does come with with certain challenges. But I feel like it's less about the physical things that we do for each other and more about the challenges inside of our own heads.
Mhm.
And and for me, I think mine focuses more on my like my learning disability can get in my way, and I think that I'm going to say something that is dumb, and I don't say things that are dumb most of the time, but it's more of that part of my disability than the physical aspect. Because a lot of people, when they think of cerebral palsy, they know that it affects your brain, but it doesn't actually give you a learning disability. You can have cerebral palsy and be perfectly mentally fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can be neurotypically fine, but then the disability can physically affect you. But I actually have a learning disability as well, which a lot of people don't realize that. And so I think I'm more affected by that part than my actual CP.
Okay. Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Right. Um,
Elizabeth's turn now.
Oh, no, I think that was
I didn't
great.
know if
Thank
she
you.
had anything to add or not, but go for it if you do.
Oh,
I think he explained it great.
okay.
Okay, okay, great. So what is a unique situation that you guys have been in together that has taught you something? And that doesn't have to be disability related, but just a situation that you guys have experienced together that taught you something that was maybe kind of profound or something new.
Yeah, I had this incident with a classmate that I didn't realize was something that was still what talked among the community. Is it okay if I talk about it, Kay?
Yeah, of course.
So I had a classmate who once after they met Shane, they started talking about like reproduction and that kind of thing, and asking about like genetic conditions. And I was like, oh, no, like why do you care? Like, that's not your relationship. And he was basically telling me, like, if he would affect my future reproduction ability, like, not to be his partner, even though that wasn't the case.
It's actually the opposite.
And like, I have the genetic disorder that would cause it. And so it was like very frank to hear it, someone telling me why I shouldn't reproduce to my face, but they were talking about being with my partner, even though that's like any partner, it would be like that. And so having that situation be forwarded out, I had to not only like find someone to talk to because I was at a university, and so I found supports, and he is no longer um, there when I'm there. And so it's like a whole situation and something I didn't know how to combat until recently. And I think that is something that needs to be taught more of like what to do when something like that happens. Because I never learned on like what to do except for just like tell an adult. But I'm an adult now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like how to respond to a question like that
Yeah.
And
without just flipping out on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
which did not happen, and we both talked about it together. And and just because I know all ages of people are going to watch this, you can have a relationship and do things that people that aren't disabled do, and
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that. You can you can have a child or you cannot have a child. You can go out with 17 people.
Mhm.
You can go to a bar and just have an interaction for one night. You can do that.
Yep.
Me and Elizabeth are in a long-term relationship, but just because you're disabled doesn't mean you can't do any of those other things. And and I've never had someone question my like I've always been on the other side of like trying to explain to people that my disability is not genetic
Mhm.
and that like I don't mind people who have disabilities that are genetic, obviously, but a lot of people think since I have cerebral palsy that it is genetic. So it's interesting in her aspect, hers is and mine's not. And I've always had the opposite of trying to tell people to that mine isn't. So it's kind of interesting to be on the other end, but it also doesn't change the way I feel about it. It's just kind of interesting to be on the other end. And I
Mhm.
just people to know that like as long as it's consensual, you can do whatever you want. And legal, obviously.
Right. Hopefully,
Um,
yes.
but
Yeah, we
like
all have choices. Absolutely. Hmm.
and recently I've been thinking a lot about the fact that people with disabilities are under a microscope. And something you tell somebody, hey, I went to a bar and had a couple drinks. They might judge you for that because you're disabled and say, well, you can't do that because you're disabled. But then they'll go to their friends and go to the bomb party, the bonfire. I don't know why it came out bomb party, bonfire, and be like, look what I did last night, and no one would care. But because we're disabled, people are like, well, you shouldn't be doing that stupid thing, or you shouldn't be in a relationship. And I just want people to know that you can be. And anybody, even if they're not disabled, that everybody has something going on, whether they're disabled or not. So it really doesn't matter if you're disabled. You just got other things going on.
For sure. And then, yeah, I think there's a lot of definitely misconceptions about relationships and people with disabilities and, making babies and all of that and sexuality, like all of that. There's so many misconceptions, specifically about people with disabilities. And so, I think it's good for people to ask those questions in a respectful way. It does not sound like this was a respectful
No,
way,
it was not a
yeah, but good for you guys for getting through that. And I think too, people shouldn't assume that people with disabilities can't have children. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But um, again, don't make assumptions about people because you don't know. So um, interesting. Yeah. It's quite the interesting experience that you had. And honestly, you guys will probably have many more of those, but I feel like you guys are strong enough to combat that and know how to respond or know how to step away from it or whatever you need to do, which is really good. So you're going to learn a lot, I think, from you've learned a lot, I'm sure, in your own individual lives, but you're going to learn a lot from being together as well.
That was definitely the first time I was surprised. Like I've never been surprised about
Mhm.
stupid questions, but I was surprised that someone was going to challenge the fact that I can't have a regular relationship. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to get into too many details, but like I just that was like I've been blindsided by hundreds of things, and that was the first time where I actually was like, dang, that was that one didn't make me laugh. Like I didn't just
Hmm.
laugh and go on with my day. I had
Hmm.
to think about it for a while.
Yeah. Um, I want to kind of get more into you guys' advice for people because you have had a lot of experiences already, I'm sure, and you're going to have many more. So, but I think sometimes it's a struggle to find someone that wants to be with you as a person with a disability. I'll just be frank about that. So, what is your advice for someone who says, no one wants to be with me because of my disability? What would your advice be to them?
What are the reasons that they want to be with you outside of it?
Mhm.
What 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 strengths or what things do you enjoy? Focus it on the things that make them answer, the things that make them happy, or the things that show them strengths, and try not to focus on the negative, because I focused on the negative for a long time, and especially in relationships. I
Mm,
my own self-worth about having a disability and having relationships used to be way, way far down. And so I just encourage you to focus on the positive things. And everybody has a person for themselves. So eventually you'll find that person, no matter how many times, you eventually will. Like, so I want you to focus on positive things as much as you possibly can, because it's definitely helped me. And I know that it's hard, no matter what's going on or what disability you have. But try to focus on the positives and get out there. Join 50 million different clubs, because you never know what will happen. I had my job and I went to the SAC conference, and because of my job, a bunch of other people did the LIND program, and then everybody that I knew was like, hey, do the LIND program. And look what, and I had no idea that this was going to happen. So join as many things as you could possibly imagine. Bug Carrie about being a part of YLF. You don't know what will happen.
Shane's putting in his little plug there. I love it. I
Uh,
agree. You never know who you're going to meet at different things. That is for sure. Elizabeth, what would your advice be?
Um, just to not think about your physical state. A lot of people are looking for a partner that helps them be the best person they can be and not for like being the best person they could stand next to. And so I think really understanding like how to build up like your confidence to be able to not only improve your life, but as well as to make other lives better.
Mhm. So that was, again, perfect segue. How do you build that confidence? Because Shane, you talked about you went through a period where you didn't have that confidence and you didn't believe in your ability to find someone that was for you. Like, how have you guys built that confidence to know that you deserve someone?
it took it takes a lot of time and like experiences, and the older you get or the more experience you get, the more you feel better. And once I learned that I could use my disability as a tool to teach people, it helped in relationships as well, because instead of trying to make my disability as unseen as possible or not talk about things about my disability that I don't like, I embrace it, and I don't like blow it up on people, but oh, I have all these things like on the first date or whatever, but I don't try to hide it anymore, and I use it to teach people. And so I would just say, like, you know, what was the question again? Sorry, I
Yeah,
started
just
and lost.
building your confidence. It just sounds like you've learned just to be your authentic self with your disabilities, and that's helped you to gain that confidence.
Yeah, definitely that, and just life experiences, going on like a date, or spending time with somebody who like a friend, and seeing how they react to things, and being out there can help you too. Because sometimes other people can see things that you can't. And
Mhm.
and that helped me with my confidence, because a lot of times people would tell me, "Oh, hey, that person thinks you're really cool or whatever," and I wouldn't believe it because of that. And so you just it just took a while, and actually that's another thing that YLF helped with. Um, Not trying to plug it, but definitely helps
I
with
agree. I agree with you. So, yeah.
a lot of different things, but mostly just me realizing I am me and I am not my disability is part of who I am, but I am not I am not Shane. I am not Shane with like I am Shane with cerebral palsy or whatever I want to say. I am not cerebral palsy Shane. Like it took that part helped a lot. Once I realized that it's about me and it's not about that. And
Mhm.
it just living life and people letting me make mistakes and take risks helped instead
Mhm.
of focusing on, you know, that just helped a lot. And getting confidence and having a job and all those things. It just eventually kind of helped make things easier that used to be really hard because I'm a very outgoing person, but not inside sometimes, and people don't see that. So it just took me a while to learn how to show people that without worrying about it, if that makes sense.
Yes. I love that. Elizabeth, have you always had confidence or has it been a journey and how'd you get there?
Yeah, mine has been a very long journey. Like Carrie, you know me a little bit, but I was mute for a big portion of my life because I didn't believe in my competency on speaking with people. And so I had very delayed speech, and I was in speech therapy my whole life, as well as different types to help me progress at a semi-typical rate. But growing up and noticing how much people would treat me differently if I spoke or didn't speak, and then like also like if I spoke the words that really highlights my disability, since I can't produce a couple of sounds, it made me realize like how different people appear to different people with disabilities. And so understanding how the stark difference, as well as like when my mom comes into the room and like she's in her chair and how they speak to her differently to like a child who doesn't speak. It was very stark and very horrific to see that. And so I realized very early on that the only way I can change anything is to speak up. And so I now use my voice, no matter what words they sound like, to speak up and to not only help myself, I think it's mainly to help others. That why I do my work, because I wouldn't be here without seeing how people were with my mom and with myself and my dad and other people in my life with disabilities.
Mhm. Wow. You guys are so darn cool. I'm just gonna say, you guys are
So are
so
you,
cool.
can you? You
Thank
you
you.
are you are also cool.
Thank
And
you.
And congratulations on 20 years of Miss Wheelchair, Kansas.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, you guys. Last question, and I'll just kind of open it if there's anything that we've missed. But what are your tips for being successful in a relationship? I know you guys haven't been out this too long with each other, but I feel like you've probably learned some things. So what tips do you have for people?
listen,
Listen, okay.
listen as much as you possibly can, even if you don't want to. Listen, because sometimes you may want to help with something, and somebody might just want to you to listen to them. And if you don't know, ask, do you want my help with this, or do you just want to talk to me about it?
Mine
Okay.
is definitely not assuming. So not assuming like what they're about to say or if they need help or assuming if they would like something unless it is like obvious. And so like I think assumption within boundaries was something I had to learn with Shane. And it definitely improved not only my relationship with him, but with all my family and loved ones.
Okay.
And not that either of us do this, but it's always something that I say. Do not lie to people. Do not lie. It does not go well. Just don't.
Just
It
don't.
just don't. Just don't.
Got it. Okay. Good advice.
And
Great.
and and enjoy the relationship. And maybe later you will figure out if you want to be with that person for however long, or or if that's just a person that's going to be in your life and then not going to be in it. It's okay. It's okay to it's okay to have one relationship for the rest of your life and only be in one relationship, but it's also okay to have multiple experiences and then eventually find the person that you want to be with. you don't have to pick the first person that decides to pick you because you think that you don't deserve anyone other than that one person. Because I used to think that,
Yeah.
um, which is something I haven't thought about in a while. But I used to think that. Um, so
And now you know different, right?
right.
Very cool. Is there anything else that you guys would like to talk about that we haven't covered?
Just that Carrie may not realize this, but when I met her, she helped me realize that I could be successful by seeing her do things that I didn't think I was able to do, which then eventually led me into being able to have relationships with people. Because I could see, even though Carrie wasn't in a relationship, she knew all of these people. And and that she was in a wheelchair and that all of the things. And she was running like all of the different organizations. And I was like, well, if she can do it, I must be able to do it. And I was like 18 at the time. And so I was like, whoa, okay. So then later I was like, well, I wonder if like Carrie or any of the other people that I've been around would be able to do this. So I might as well do it because eventually they're going to just tell me that I can do it. So I didn't know if you knew that. So I just wanted to tell
Thank
you that and others that they can that that you can get advice about things without actually getting advice about that specific thing. It will eventually help you later.
you. You're so sweet. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many good examples out there and people that we can watch and people that we can see their story and learn their story and learn from them. And I'm just really happy that I was able to kind of be somewhat of that role model for you. That means a lot to me. But I'm so stinking proud of you. You have come so far. The growth in you, Shane, is just, it's like exploding in these last few years. And it's just awesome to see. So I'm extremely proud of you. Is there anything else that you guys would like to talk about?
I don't think so.
Don't let life happen to you. Live life and let life happen to you. Or wait, maybe I said that wrong.
I got what you're saying.
I didn't like write it down. I was literally just like thinking this and trying to figure out how to say it.
Yeah,
Don't let life live. Don't live life to be a part of life. Live life to be in life and do things, I guess.
like live life to the fullest, I think is what you're trying to
Yeah.
say, and choose what you want for your own life.
Yeah.
Is that it? Did I get
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great advice. We all have choices and we all need to create the life that we want. And if part of that is relationship, then go for it. I mean, I have really enjoyed having this conversation with you guys because I think it shows that again, people with disabilities can be in relationships too. We want to be in relationships. We want to have all those experiences. And you guys have found someone that really complements you, it seems, and that really um, it works. It works for you guys. And I'm glad that our youth that get to watch this can see that and know that it's possible for them too. So thank you so much for all the wisdom. I mean, you guys may be young people, young adults, but you have some lot of wisdom in you. So thank you for sharing that with anyone who watches this video. So, all right, you guys, those are all my questions. Again, thank you for doing this with me. And I just really appreciate it and hope that anyone, again, who's watching this knows that it isn't just Shane and Elizabeth who did this. You can do it as well, and you can have a good relationship and be happy and experience all those things, whether, no matter what that looks like for you as an individual. So they're a great example of that, as well as the other couple that I interviewed. And I hope that these interviews have been helpful to those who watch them. So thank you guys so much for doing this with me, and you guys rock.
Have a good day.
Thank you.